Hi, I'm Josh Zabak, and welcome to another episode of I Know What I Know. I'm your host with my guest host that will be a frequent host of the show.
Cesar Romero.
Today, we're going to start the 10-part series on the sales process. I've been in sales all my life. My father wrote a book on sales. 40 years ago, he started in the industry, started selling air conditioning. 40 years ago, my dad was in the industry, and he started selling air conditioning for Sears Roebuck. He went through a sales training process, and that was a long, long time ago. 10-step sales process. This sales process has been around for a very, very long time. He didn't create it. He merely put it in a book and made it digestible for people to start to understand and to start to train. You can check out his book on Amazon, 10 Steps to High Definition Selling by Michael Zabak. It is a great book. However, we call it low pressure sales, low pressure with a velvet hammer, which means you're still getting whacked over the head, which means it's still some pressure sales in there. So I really wanted to go through this book and through the 10 steps because we always say sales guys get educated, customers don't. Sales guys know what the next step is, customers don't. I've talked to a couple of my friends that aren't in sales and started going through some of the processes, and they have no idea what happens in the world of sales. And they have no idea how calculated it is. So if anything, through this series, my goal is to give the power back to the people buying the products and take the power away from the sales guy. Because at the end of the day, if you have a good company with a great product, naturally, cream rises to the top, your company should go to the top. If you have a bad company with unscrupulous methods of selling products that are high priced and overrated, then you shouldn't be around. It's that simple. And we have a problem in America today where we have too many sales guys. So we're going to go through this plan. Today, we're going to do an overview of the first step. The first step in a house is called the entry. Step number 1. You got to enter into that house. You remember the entry, right, Henry?
I do, man. It's one of those things where, like, as a new salesperson, you know, where you're doing like a sale that's at somebody's house, I would say is one of the parts that gives you the little tinglies, you know, that makes you feel a little funny because you're going to somebody's house, right? Yeah. So it's crazy how much training salespeople get just for that step, right? So
we probably spent a day or 2 days on that one step.
Yeah.
And reiterated it through the entire process. Because if you can't enter the house, you can't sell a product.
Yeah. Because, like I said, I'm actually pretty excited, man, that you decided to do this on your show and essentially break down, you know, the steps only to tell people how to watch out for them. So I think it's something awesome, man. I think that's something a lot of people should look forward to, including myself, to hear it from your point of view, right? Because like you said, your dad wrote the book. You know what I'm saying? So you had that direct influence, like from an early age.
I think when I was 6 years old, I was going into the houses with my dad when he'd be on sales calls, and he'd use me as pretty much a warm up. Which that's step 2. We'll get into that next week. But he would use his 6-year-old son to ask for milk and cookies. And if somebody brought me milk and cookies, they'd think it's literally just getting a child milk and cookies because he's, you know, bring your son to work day with his father and stuff. But that was my dad taking control. Salesmen who control the situation, control the flow of the process, control the sale.
Yep.
So one of the first things whenever somebody's trying to get into your house, they're going to come at you with a lot of kindness, with a befriending attitude. You think it's them just being a sales guy. Everybody thinks, you know, sales guys have to be personable and want to talk to everybody. It was funny. I was talking to my mom, and she was like, oh, yeah, your dad said he kind of hates talking to people. And I was like, me too. When you talk to people all your life and your only goal for talking to that person is to get them to buy something, you're not really just talking. It's an emotional workout. Some people go on labor jobs. We would go on mental labor jobs, and that's taxing too. So by the time you're done the sales process as a salesman, you're like reclusive. You're like you just want to be by yourself with your own thoughts and not around people, not entertaining, because a sales guy is always out to entertain. because if you don't like somebody, usually you're not going to buy from them.
Yep.
So the first part, they're going to try and get you to like them.
Yep. And like you said, that starts with an entry, how they show up, and like I said, salespeople train on this. So what is some of the training that these people actually get for specifically, knocking on the door, I guess we can say?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is we train them to 2-minute drill it. You have 2 minutes to make an impression. When you knock on that door, you're at a job interview. Well, the customer needs to understand they're the interviewer. The sales guy is the interviewee. So if he starts asking you questions and controlling, everything's on control. If he starts to try and control the flow of the conversation, in your mind as a customer, you have to think this guy's getting the advantage on me. And I hate to even say it like this, but it's a game. It is a game. And the second you let them knock on your door to come into your house, you decided, I'm going to play the game. But you're probably going to lose the game if you don't study, or if you're not watching this episode right now and the next 9 after this, because we're really, really going to get into it. The entry is one of the easier steps, because how hard is it to be personable and nice to people? How hard is it to be on time, to not show up late, to dress decent enough so that they don't think you're some slouch off the corner of the road? You want to dress to make an appearance. It's not that hard. What's hard, though, is when you have a bad company. Me and you both used to work for one of those companies.
Right.
We'll call it Aramount Builders. Don't put a P in front of it. Are you allowed to say that?
I think so. Okay. I don't think they're around anymore. So
who? Oh, you just said it. You weren't supposed to say it.
It.
Got him.
Got me.
What was their reviews?
They're like 2.9.
And if you read the reviews on Yelp, the reviews on Yelp would literally be like, high pressure salesman came to my house at dinner time, forced their way into my house, was at my house for 3.5 hours. Why are you even considering talking to this company right now?
It's questionable.
Because the guy that knocked on my door was really nice. That was the first thing we trained. You want to talk about your training process? I'm sure that was in there. How to get around having crap reviews and still make it into somebody's house.
It absolutely was. And, that's why, depending on what type of salesman it is and things like that, our experience very related to the type of companies that will send somebody to come, knock on your door, tell you there's a problem, and then they send somebody else to actually sell you the product, right? So it's like a multi-stage sale where people don't realize it's happening, but it's already started at the entry, the very first time somebody knocked on the door. So, like I said, it's important for people to know how to deal with that. But there's also sometimes when somebody comes and knocks on the door and the customer hasn't seen reviews and stuff like that, right? So it goes back to something we've talked about before, where do your research, right? If somebody came to your house and they told you there was a problem with something, or they have something to offer and it sounded like a good idea and you accepted an appointment, go do research on that company. And if you see some reviews, chances are they're true.
Mm-hmm. When they all lie the same, you got the truth. We didn't talk about that on this podcast. That's on our other podcast, Money Matters. If you haven't checked that out, check out Money Matters on YouTube also. It's a good little plug, right? One thing I do want to say, though, is whenever somebody's making entrance into that house, whenever somebody would bring up the reviews, those were my favorite customers. Because it was a game to me, and because it is a game to sales guys, they thrive off that. So instead of me, wasting 3 hours of my time to work into your house and then have you not buy from me because I found out I couldn't control that customer, when that customer right from the get is like, you're not coming into my house, your reviews suck, I canceled the appointment, and I work my way into that house, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be an easy sale because I just sold them to get into their house. Customers aren't thinking that. They start thinking, oh, this guy wasted his time. The sales guy's going to give you a story like, oh, well, they didn't call me and I just drove an hour away. Unfortunately, it's okay. I'm not worried about it. And then you start to take the pressure off as a salesperson, which drops the guard of the customer down. My dad would always say, Customers are like the Starship Enterprise with all their shields up. First thing you got to do as a sales guy is lower their shields. Once they lower their shields, then you can take them out. Customers need to leave their shields up. It's not that you shouldn't be personable with somebody. And this is even if you let somebody get to the point that they're at your house, right? Because I don't even think they should be at your house. In fact, I'll ask you a question. When do you think we need salespeople?
Knowing what I know now, never.
Never. But how would I buy windows?
A lot of different ways. Now, you know specific to that question, right? That answer better than I. But if I backtrack a little bit, say any product, right? Any product, I think rule number one is people out there got to realize that most places or most, products and things that you buy, there's usually going to be some type of distributor or wholesaler involved, right? And so a middleman. And so if you do enough research and find out how to skip all that and get to a manufacturer for something yourself, you usually can. That's true for things like a car. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of these independent dealerships, the ones that are not like a big name brand, the ones that are owned by privately, a lot of these cars are just going to the auction. You as a consumer can go to the auction too. There's nothing.
And buy the same cars that they're buying without the profit and overhead.
That's right. Because in reality, people think, and this was me included, I used to think like, hey, again, someone who works there and this is a business that's standing there and they exist, they have to be doing something right. So they have to tell the truth most of the time, right? So a lot of people don't realize that's not the case. So you go buy a car, take your mechanic with you. So forget what the salesperson's telling your mechanic's gonna, and you're already paying him. So that's a little tip. If you're out there looking for a car, take your mechanic with you. Maybe if you just go around, look, but don't go in the dealership with the people. Once you narrow it down to a car or something that you like, pay your mechanic $125, whatever. Go to the car and he can help you. But here's the kicker. If you're willing to do that, just pay him to go to the auction with you and skip the dealership, right? You can save yourself thousands of dollars by doing that. So that's one example how in a different world you can look at purchasing things potentially from the manufacturer or just skipping as many middlemen as possible. Yeah, and salespeople are essentially just another middleman.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's the difference between a service-based company and a sales-based company. If you're paying a mechanic, he's not going to give you a free estimate. You're going to have to pay him the $125 or whatever the price is to go out because you're paying him for a service.
Right.
I'd rather deal with a service person personally anytime over a salesperson.
And could you give the people a little bit more of a detailed difference between a salesman and a service person?
I mean, simply put, if you look at sales guys, right? Let's take your example of cutting out the middleman and going to the warehouse and stuff like that. In the window industry, a lot of people will think I could never do that, but you have builder supply shops. So if you can do enough research on what window you want, you can find the window that you want and buy that. You could find a window installer, somebody who actually is a service person who's not going to send a sales guy out, who might get subcontracted by other window sales guys or sales companies that are going to use the same technician that you could use. But instead of putting a 300%, 400% markup on the product and paying $1,500 for a window, you might be able to get a window for like $600. And it's the same thing. You're either going to waste waste time with the sales guy who's going to convey his truth to you, not necessarily the truth, but his truth, the one that he or she was trained on, or you're going to pay a service guy, not for a free estimate, but for real advice, for real services, right? Sales guy is going to sell you a bill of goods. Service guy is going to do something for you. Same thing like garage doors. I needed my garage door service. I could have gotten a free estimate, which would be them sending a sales guy out to sell me on a new garage door. But I chose to hire a service-based company that sent a service technician out that was not free, that I paid whether he fixed it or not, but I paid him for his time. People are going to get compensated for their time. Nobody works for free. So understand that these sales guys that are coming out to your house for free estimates, they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing that for a paycheck. They're doing that to get your dollar so they can make a commission. And if they don't enter your house, they're never going to have an opportunity to sell you,
Right.
which is good. Because again, if you have good companies that are selling valuable products and services, they should naturally, with our information and how we can distribute information nowadays, those are the companies that everybody should be going for. You're either going to pay to market your product or you're going to pay a sales guy to market it for you. I was thinking about Carvana. People innately hate sales guys. Carvana, in doing research, is higher priced than CarMax. It's higher priced than car dealerships. If you think about it, though, if you're taking out the salesman's commission, which I know CarMax doesn't work on sales commissions, so they say, if you take out the commission of a sales guy, shouldn't the price be less? But in actuality, the price goes up because they don't have the sales guy to sell 70% of the people that walk onto the lot. They rather depend on their media and their advertising for people who want to shop at home to go to their website to purchase a car. Now, even if a customer knows Carvana's higher, which really easily you can see they're higher priced, it's okay. People are still willing to pay the higher price so they don't have to go to the car lot and deal with sales guys. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I think that's even a generational thing too,
For sure.
with technology and stuff
Yeah.
like that. People prefer to do things. So, essentially a smart idea on their part, but I think you were looking to touch base on this a little bit, eliminates the need for anybody to enter your home. And even, usually instead of letting when you're looking to purchase something, instead of letting somebody enter your home, the next smartest thing is, do your research and then you visit their business, right? Their place of business. Like I said, things like Carvana and taking advantage of the technology and even skipping that step, right?
Yeah.
Now, maybe somebody who used them would say, well, they paid $2, $3, $4,000 more dollars for that vehicle, than they would have somewhere else. But there's a lot of things that go into that, where maybe because of the easiness of the delivery, the not being at the dealership for 7 hours, not having shady finance person, put you in a bad deal that you don't really understand. It really
Yeah,
is.
that $3,000 if you buy one of those total car packages or the extended car warranties, there's your couple $1,000s extra that you would spend with Carvana. And I'd go one step further than that and say, because they're taking out the sales guy makes sales happen. Good marketing and a good company can also make sales happen without a sales guy. But you still have to put into the marketing to get them to get to your company. I would hope in several years, like you said, it's a generational thing. So as our generation gets used to shopping online and eliminating, which is why we turned the lights to red for death of a salesperson, not the play, but actual, hopefully, not all salespeople die because I was a salesperson. I'd probably die right now. But in any case, one of the biggest things is if we can fast forward 10 years from now, I wonder if Carvana will lower their price. Because if they build the reputation and the natural desire for people to want to buy through them, they can now advertise less. They can now market less, which hopefully they would give that back to the customers and make the sales happen easier.
Yeah, because right now we're speaking about them specifically in a positive note. But if they don't, if in 10 years we don't feel like they're doing the right thing, we'll come after them too and start calling them out. So actually, I'm kind of curious, man, a lot of people's mindset, if anybody out there has dealt with Carvana, I'm just curious, how was the experience? Leave it in the comments. Tell us anything good, anything bad. I'm truly curious because, like I said, what we're talking about, they don't have the lowest price in town, but I can see why they're enticing, and the marketing that they do and things like that. And a company that relies on marketing also relies on their social media or like online reputation, right?
Online presence.
Online presence. So if essentially they weren't doing the right thing, there would be the reviews
They'd be
and
getting called out and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And you can see plenty of, reviews on car dealerships. And I'd say the one takeaway from this would be if you see bad reviews, when they're all lying the same, you got the truth. look for some other company. There's so many companies that sell so many products. Don't just settle for one because they're close to you. I don't care where the location of the company is personally. If they're contacting me or if I'm contacting them and they're willing to do business with me, why do I care where they're at? As long as they do the job that they're supposed to do and they stand behind what they do, that's what I look for in a company. Understand that the second a salesman enters your house, when you start to see these controlling behaviors, literally down to where we would sit. I would tell people if I enter a house and the customer starts taking me to the living room, I'm going to say, actually, guys, why don't we sit in the kitchen? It's going to be a little bit more comfortable that way when we hand stuff. That's me taking control. Now I see the husband sitting down in a chair, and I say, actually, before you sit down, can you sit right here? And ma'am, here, can you get up, sit right next to him, and I'll sit here. Again, it's dominating, it's control. When you see a salesman start to try and control the environment down to water glass, I don't know if you remember what I would always say. Would you like ice in your cups of water? You remember that?
Yep.
What would I say?
I think it was something like with three ice cubes or something like that.
And if they would bring me back a cup with 3 ice cubes, I'd say, hey, thank you so much for listening. Most people don't understand. I have a science. I make it a joke. But the fact is, I just checked the box off in my head as a salesman that I can control this person. And all these little things that they're doing for a reason. They're not being nice to you because they really like you. They might. I can't say that. It's unfair to say that. But a great reason why they're being nice to you is because they want you to buy something from them, and they don't make $1 of commission unless you buy. Control is a big thing. I equals H. It makes somebody feel inferior. They're coming back to you with hostile reactions. So even if a customer is, being anxious with the sales guy, or kind of like back to the review thing, like, I don't want you in my house, the sales guys know how to diffuse that situation. They're trained. We literally sit in a conference room with 10 sales guys for hours in role play situations. I'd say sales guys are actually trained actors. I'd go that far. Window sales guys.
Yeah.
There's different levels to sales. And I can speak on what I know, which is the window side of things, because if you think car guys are bad, like you said, go to their location. You're going to a car salesman's location. With the window sale, they're coming to your house. They're in your zone.
And that's a lot of industries, because a lot of people have homes. A lot of people realize that people need work done because homes are built cheap. And so eventually there's a whole remodeling industry out there that's, I don't know, maybe just as big or bigger than the new home construction industry, right? So that's why we feel like bringing this out there, because there's so much out there of it that you really have to get educated on. And if you're not, you are going to fall behind.
And I'd say if you want to throw a sales guy off, I don't know if this is good or not, but I'll teach it to you. Because again, you should really never be in a position where that person's coming out to your house unless you're ready to make a buying decision, because that's their goal and that's what they're going to get you to do. 7 times out of 10, the good ones. Again, look for the control. Take them outside. Don't let them in your house. I remember so many times I'd go on sales appointments, and the ones that would block me from going in the house, again, salesmen are in their head people. It's a mental fatigue workout that they're going through. The more check boxes that they can say, it's going in the right direction, it's going in the right direction. They're selling themselves too, that you're going to buy something, and nobody wants to waste hours if they don't think you're buying. So all these little things that they're checking off, they're doing for a reason. It's to keep themselves in your house. So if you want to throw them off, don't let them in your house. If they say, oh, but I need to look at your window, you can see them from the outside. If it's a hot summer day, put them outside. See how they act then. See if they're really going to be your friend and be there for you and be there to help you out, or see if they're going to get a little antsy and uptight and get ready to leave because they're done and they're not thinking they're going to make the sale. Even if you think they're going to buy it, just do it just to see what happens. It's fun. Torture some of them. People did that to me. It's only right.
Oh, geez.
The smart ones. And the sad thing is, the smarter the person, the more that person wanted to educate themselves. As a sales guy, I'm thinking to myself, man, this guy's an idiot. I'm thinking he's an idiot because he's not listening to what I'm telling him. And if he's not listening to what I'm telling him, I'm not going to be able to sell him. So the biggest takeaway right here, again, control. All these little things that you think are not for a reason, let me tell you, they're for a reason. They're padded into the sales process, and everything that a salesman says and does is for a reason. The good ones. I can only talk about the good ones. The newbies I'm not really worried about because they're not going to know how to close you, which means make you sign on the dotted line that night.
Right.
Uh, Next week, we're going to get into the warm up. The warm up briefly is basically warming up to that person once you get into the job interview to get them to lower their defenses. We'll go over tactics on how to avoid that and why they even do that. But again, everything is a process. And if you watch this entire series from start to finish, you're going to see how calculated of a process it is, and it's been. And again, this just didn't come up overnight. People have been selling on a 10-step program for a half a century, if not longer than that.
Yeah.
There's people who are multimillionaires from professional training, from professional education, from motivation, from going out to people's houses people's businesses and training their sales reps. People get paid tens of thousands of dollars to do that because as a business owner, a trained sales rep is going to yield you more money. One of the biggest things is put time into the training of sales reps. Anything to add to that?
No, just a reminder to hit that like and subscribe button because we're going to be putting this information out. Like I said, every episode is going to get better. The information is going to get better and you learn more. So, like I said, make sure to tune in and check out all the information because you need it. The salespeople out there, the realtors, the car salesmen, almost everybody you're going to come into contact with knows some version of this process, right? And if you don't know that it exists, I have this one saying I like. I don't know if I ever, or maybe I stole it from you. I don't know, man. It's been so long that I've known you now, but I like to say because I remember learning about conversations, right, and things like that, not just on a sales side, but also on like let's say a social kind of dynamics type of thing. And one thing that was said over and over is either whenever you're in a conversation with somebody, you're either playing the game or the game's being played on you.
Yep.
And at certain levels of friendship, that's eliminated. But when you're in any type of transaction or any professional environment, it's the truth. And so if you're not aware of what's out there, game's gonna be played on you every single time.
Don't get played.
Don't get played. We'll see you next time.